Well, folks, let's talk about what happened in Georgia, where the Court of Appeals made a decision removing Fulton County DA from the prosecution of Donald Trump. All of this as a result of the Nathan Wade saga, someone she was involved with, and all of that drama. Trump and other defendants in the case had argued Willis profited from hiring special prosecutor Nathan Wade, with whom she had a romantic relationship, and that it gave the elected district attorney an impermissible stake in the prosecution. The defense failed to prove an actual conflict of interest, but that the appearance of impropriety makes this a rare case. This is one of the stories that it had been gone back and forth. And of course, once it became public, that sidetracked the entire prosecution that led to various hearings. And so what it did was it gave Donald Trump exactly what he wanted. And that is it gave them time to back off. Now, here's the issue here. That also jumps out. And this is really the problem with the Georgia Court of Appeals decision. Not only is she removed, her office is removed. We're now talking about a red state. So what now happens? Who does the Attorney General appoint a special prosecutor? Oh, the AG is a Republican. So this case may actually die. And so this is, again, just what is crazy with this whole thing. And I was very clear. And I've had some people who hit me and they said, oh my God, Roland, I think you're wrong. I'm going to say it again. We are here because of Fani Willis's decision. In this case here, I don't care what anybody says. If you're trying to convict a former occupant of the Oval Office, everything has got to be clean. There cannot be a blemish on anybody on the team. It doesn't matter. And common sense says, sorry, boo, you can't be on the team. No, you cannot. I don't care what anybody says. And so this is not, oh, well, this is attacking her. No, it's not. She made this call. And that's why we're where we are right now. J. Edward Shipp, his attorney, joins us right now. All right, J. Edward, what do you make of this? Is this any surprise?
It's not a surprise. Well, I'll take that back. It is a surprise coming from the Court of Appeals that actually went against the rule that they had set not even 3 years ago, saying that just an appearance of impropriety is not enough to disqualify an office. So let's start there. Now they're bending the rules for their favorite candidate and saying, hey, I guess this appearance can be used to disqualify this office. And the dissent spells it out and says, you guys, in 2021, we had something like this come up and we chose not to, bend the rules for this particular individual. And now, just because you don't like the outcome of how this is all played out, now you're bending the rules and saying, we're going to bend the knee and we're going to allow the office to be disqualified. Is it going to go to the Supreme Court? My bets are on yes. But again, it's surprising to see that the Court of Appeals would go against tradition, precedent, stare decisis, and say, yeah, we're wrong. Actually, we're going to allow this office to be disqualified.
But why? Why is it a surprise? If you are a blue dot in a sea of red, you got to make sure your stuff is tight where you give nobody an opportunity to rule the way they ruled.
It's a surprise because so many times we have watched people say, well, we're going to go to the rule of law. The rule of law is what's always been shoved down our throats by the Republican side. Let's follow the rule of law. And that's even what happened in this particular case. The trial judge said, yes, there is an odor of mendacity at this case. We're looking at, the person who testified. Yeah, they're probably lying. But again, I have found it not to be improper, so I'm not going to disqualify her. And then you had the Court of Appeals say, hey, I know we never change what the trial court says. We always go to the trial court's discretion because they are the people who actually heard the testimony, were right there at the time. We're going to go and change that. That's a surprise to us.
Here's why it's not a surprise to me. We see it with the Supreme Court. We actually see it, which is why, for me, you never do anything to put yourself in a position to where it has to go where somebody else is now determining the rules. That's where it is. Let me go to my panel here. Joy, Greg, Joy, I want to start with you. Joy, I've had a couple of people text me and they were like, well, you should be defending the sister. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. If I was the Fulton County DA, I'm saying to everybody on the team, if you got even a smidgen of a problem, tell me right now, and I'm probably going to boot you off the team.
I think that's right. I'm texting right now with a friend who's a lawyer in Fulton County, and they agree. This was a mistake, and I've always said it, that Fani Willis, despite how proud we were of her and her toughness and her flair and her competence as an attorney, she made a huge personal error in judgment, a personal error that was also a professional error in judgment. And then she compounded it by once it was out there, and perhaps being unfairly blown up, whatever. We're not naive. That is, of course, what's going to happen. If any of us had a prosecutor who had a relationship with another prosecutor on the case, we would bring it up too. We're going to be adults here. We would all bring it up. Any defendant would bring it up. But once it's brought up, and even if it's unfair, she should have recused herself. Not just the other man, I'm forgetting his name right now. She should have recused herself. If she had done that early on, we might have been able to put it behind us. She would not have become the story, and we could have saved so that her office could have continued with the case. But instead, that did not happen.
And the thing here, Greg,
it's been a problem.
And Greg, because of this decision, the case may be over. I mean, this is what happens when it's taken out of your hands, and you gotta play chess. You gotta be thinking forward and going, okay, they're gonna do this. They're gonna do everything they can to try to end this, take it out of my hands. I can't give them anything.
No, but I'll be honest with you though, brother. I can't get that animated. About it, and just for a simple reason. If it wasn't this, it was going to be something else. And I agree with you 100%. I'm with you 100% that there should have been no hint of impropriety. And of course, there are people who remember when Fani Willis, as a young assistant district attorney in 2013, used that same RICO statute against school superintendent Beverly Hall and all those black school teachers down there, And so I know that's an issue as well. But as Brother Shipp said, there's no precedent for this. All three of the judges on the panel that took her and her office out are Republican. The trial court judge, Judge McAfee, was appointed by the gun-toting Brian Kemp. In fact, the dissenter, Judge Land, was like, hey, man, the majority, the two people who voted to take her out, we as you said, Brother Shipp, we always, there's a long history of us basically bowing to the discretion of the trial court. We're not trying fact here. We're not, and we don't know. And so let's say that she hadn't had an affair with this brother. Let's say that was clean as a whistle. Well, then they're looking for another reason to take them out. I'm not defending Fani Willis. Like I said, I have mixed opinions about her anyway, generally, but that is beside the point. This is about naked power and a naked power grab. And so, at this point, I guess, and help me, Brother Shipp, I think at this point it goes, to the Prosecuting Attorney Council in Georgia?
So
and of course,
yes, it goes to PAC, Prosecuting Attorneys Council. And of course, they're the ones who will punt it all the way to the end and let the statute run. So, yeah, we are in a perilous situation. However, she can appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court and get them to actually hold on to that stare decisis. Because, again, if they don't hold on to this stare decisis, if they don't hold on to this precedent, then what is to stop us as defense attorneys from coming in and saying, okay, well, since you said that this is the appearance of impropriety and it can disqualify these prosecution officers, why can't we start disqualifying these prosecution officers for going to these fundraisers with judges, going out to the gun club with judges, going to the hunting club or the golf course with judges?
Right.
Because it looks improper, right?
Yeah.
That's the point.
I think you should. I don't know if you can hear me, but I think you should be using that. Why not? Why the hell not? So if they've opened the door here, let's use it. I don't have a problem with that. If that's the case, then it's well worth it. We also know that Fani Willis has some other things to answer for in Fulton County. Some things that are done to rank and file prisoners, people that have been there too long without having trials and hearings. So look, let's move on to what's next. I don't, if she decides to appeal it, that's fine. I'm sure she will. That's good. But let's let the prosecution move forward. Let's do what we can do on Donald Trump, but then perhaps her office can refocus on the things that are happening to rank and file people in Fulton County, because that's also a story here that is not fully being told, even as we are proud of her. There is some improvement that needs to be done there. And with respect to her, let this be a lesson to all of you. If you're going to take on and be in a high-profile case like Donald Trump, you cannot have this kind of gap out there. It's not going to work. They're going to find out, and they're going to use it to their benefit. And you can say it could have been anything, but in this case, it wasn't. It was the thing you gave them.
Well, the thing for me, I just cannot stand unforced errors. I hate unforced errors. And I thought that this case was one of the strongest ones out of all of the various state cases. And to be honest, I don't have any hope that this thing is going to move forward. You, J. Edward, what are you out of you?
I have my reservations, but I do think it's going to move forward. But I always think about, Omar said it in The Wire, you shoot for the king, you better not miss. And I have to agree with you. Yes, she made some bad decisions. But again, as I said earlier, and I say a million times over, these same legal arguments that they came up with have been laughed out of court. But because it was a black woman prosecuting this powerful white man, now we're saying, oh, well, there might be some credibility to that. Let's look into it. And I think that's the most asinine thing in the world.
And that's why I say to anybody who's watching, you never give them any room to come and get you. You give them nothing. You make them work hard. I'm sorry, this one, she made it easy for him. Jay, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good day, my brother.
All right, folks, gonna go. I really do think this is a lesson, Joy and Greg. I remember I was having a debate with someone at a previous company I worked with. And every time this person would kill other folks' ideas, he would pick holes. In their argument. But you know why he couldn't stand me? Because he couldn't pick no holes in my argument, because I made sure not to make sure there were any holes. And he tried. When I say this dude hated my guts, it's because my shit was bulletproof. And I would sit in a room, and we'll be in a meeting, and I'd be like, I dare you to challenge me. Yeah. I dare you to find holes. And I just think that, it just drives me crazy. She made it easy for him.
She made it easy for them, and this wasn't even on the margins. This was pretty darn clear. Certainly, she did not enrich herself by engaging in a relationship with him, but she did hire someone she had a relationship with, which is not that unusual, except that then they kind of lied about it. I personally think that. Some people say they didn't, but the story certainly sounded fishy. Her performance on the stand that day, I know a lot of people loved it, and it felt like some kind of strike for powerful black women, but I'm going to be honest with you. It wasn't the decorum that we're used to in the court. I'm sorry. It was out of the norm. It was inappropriate. I'll be honest. And I think all of that, if people already felt like there was bias, that there was an appearance of messiness and impropriety, chaos already, it added to it. It didn't diminish it. It made her the story. So in this case, if you're watching this, this is a lesson of how not to do it. We'll know better next time, but it's a lesson of how not to do it. And please don't fool ourselves. I don't want to hear about it in our sorority meetings and whatever. No. We can love Fani. Black women don't have to be perfect. We can make mistakes. She made a mistake, and we ought to own that. This time, she made a mistake. This one is on her.
I think the less, and listen, Greg, this is the highest of high profile. I mean, look, their case against Young Thug blew up. I mean, hell, both judges went off and was talking about how unprepared they were. This is just, I guess what just angers me, this was the strongest case against this thug. This was the strongest case. And we got the cases in New York. We got those as well. And the judge said, look, I'm not, throwing the, look, they still may decide to dismiss the charges, which I still think is bogus. Just because you won an election, the charges should not get dismissed. It's just, the thing is, it is what it is, but it just sort of just drives me a little bit crazy. Here's what I tell, not even lawyers. I tell students this. I tell folk who work here, have your stuff lined up. Don't ever make it easy to get got. That's just my biggest thing. And so that's just what frustrates me the most. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. I think that if you are black, certainly in the United States of America, and you pretend to be sane, or if you think you're sane, then you're not well. Because this whole structure is set up in a field of violence. And when you talk about students, one of the most difficult things, I think, for law students, black law students, I remember when I was in law school, is the moment they realize that it's all make-believe and it's all about power. There is no stare decisis. There's no precedent.
Right.
There's what you can ram down the throat of your opponent. When we were drug here in chains, and when these rapists, like Thomas Jefferson, and I suppose I shouldn't call him a rapist because legally women of African descent were property, so you can't rape property, I suppose. Thinking now about Bob Iger and Disney that showed that they're rolling over and showing their belly to Trump by settling on something they should and would have won in court. Most lawyers would agree. But the idea that the law somehow is a mathematical equation and that it exists above and beyond human politics is a fantasy. And when you realize that, I've seen people leave the legal profession. I've seen people keep a stiff upper lip and continue to fight. And when you ask them what's going on, they tell you what's the alternative. There are many alternatives, quite frankly. And respectability is not going to improve our chances. You have a man convicted in New York for assaulting E. Jean Carroll. You have an administration, a Congress filled with young girl lovers, filled with pornographers, filled with all kind of stuff. But when it comes to us, the idea that we could somehow respectability our way into some form of parity belies the fact that the law itself is a field of violence. And if this doesn't do anything else, let's say that everything would have gone through, there would have been a conviction. Well, at that point, the judge in Georgia follows the judge in New York and says, we will suspend the sentence until the president is out of office. And guess what? You heard Steve Bannon the other night. Y'all talked about it. Steve Bannon saying, hey, maybe we should go for another one in 28. Why? Because they're going to make the case that it's 2 consecutive terms that the cap applies to. And finally, when you look at the number of states that have called for a constitutional convention, they're past that threshold number, which is why places like California legislature are trying to walk back their demand from years ago, because there is no rule over how long a state's demand for a U.S. Constitutional Convention is good. And they're going to make the argument that they've already been enough states to say it. And if they can get that into the conversation, there are also no rules as to who can submit an amendment. Although you still need a supermajority of states to pass the constitutional amendment, they may go back in and re-examine the 13th Amendment. In other words, there is no such thing as a rule of law that transcends human behavior. We couldn't respectability politics our way out of it, and behaving as if we could reinforces the myth that they rely on to keep us in line.
Well,
I agree.
It will go, look, they'll appeal to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what they decide, and that is that.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free-to-download, free-to-use, next-generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early-stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.